Previously on Dust Toll.
A funeral furlough turned to gunfire. While out to bury their sister Lovey, the Kimes brothers were pulled into the fatal shooting of George Noland, Nellie's former lover, and the man she later said shot her. The testimonies clashed. The truth stayed muddy. The brothers went back to their cells, but the Kimes name kept walking free. Inside McAllister, Matthew Kimes, the Phantom Bandit, rose from lifer to power broker. As a trustee, he ran the canteen, quieted riots, and slipped in and out of town on leaves that looked a lot like freedom, right down to a 6-day quail hunt turned calf branding, photographed for all to see. The public balked. The widow of Chief McAnally, killed in the Beggs robberies, said she was serving out her own sentence. Still, the show went on. Rodeos behind the walls, a prison minstrel MC, Matt's charm selling redemption while the keys still clanged. Beyond the wire, the sisters kept landing in headlines. Drunkenness, burglaries, bad company, each scrape tightening the noose of notoriety. George, worn down by years and bullets, wrote a letter that read like a last prayer for mercy, even as he hit solitary for forging a parole seal. Matt slipped, too, borrowed a guard's car, lost trustee status, then joined lifers training as fighters incarcerated, dreaming of trading numbers for names. And, by 1944, after 17 hard years, the Kid Outlaw stood once more at the door marked Clemency, one more chance to walk out a free man, or to yank the Kimes legend back into the line of fire. This is Dust Toll, Episode 9, The Final Reckoning. After serving 17 years of his 2 life sentences, Matthew Kimes, now nearing 39 years old, was ready to make his next significant bid for freedom. He submitted an application for clemency to Oklahoma's new constitutional 5-person pardon and parole board, hoping his prison record would sway their decision. According to prison officials, Kimes had maintained an exemplary and flawless record throughout his 17 years of imprisonment. He had become a skilled leather worker and a respected leader among the inmates. Notably, he was one of the founders of JKLM, a prison welfare organization that provided financial assistance to discharged prisoners, helped destitute families of inmates, and furnished funds for appeals against death sentences. Warner R.B. Connor and Wallace Bond, a former deputy warden, supported Kimes, attesting to his good behavior. As we previously learned, Kimes had been granted brief leaves, including a 6-day leave in late 1934, ostensibly for quail hunting with his attorney, Sid White. Although bad weather prevented that hunt, Kimes spent the time on White's farm, even being photographed branding calves, presenting a surprisingly ordinary image for the notorious outlaw. White expressed immense trust in Kimes, saying he would trust that boy with my life. Kimes expressed a desire to be released so he could contribute to the war effort, specifically stating his wish to go to China and help build the Burma Road. However, Matt's bid for freedom ignited a firestorm of opposition, demonstrating that his past actions were far from forgotten, and the pain he inflicted still resonated deeply. Over the years, whenever talk of possible clemency for Matt arose, opposition quickly erupted from all fronts. From law enforcement, Bryan County Sheriff W.O. Taylor, president of the Oklahoma Peace Officers Association, vehemently protested Kimes' release, citing his conviction in the deaths of 2 police officers. Sequoia County Attorney R.O. Engel and Sheriff Henry Jones echoed this sentiment, arguing that Kimes did not deserve clemency and that his life sentence was too lenient for his crimes. From victims' families. The families of his victims mounted strong protests. M.D. McAnally, son of the slain Beggs Police Chief W.J. McAnally, wrote to Governor Kerr, stating that his family would never agree to his release and had to fight every year or so to keep him imprisoned. Mrs. W.J. McAnally, the chief's widow, declared that freedom for Kimes would be a travesty on justice and highlighted her own suffering, stating, "I am having to serve out my time as a widow without any help because of him." McAnally's son also said that an unidentified man had offered his mother, the widow of Chief McAnally, $50 if she would sign a petition to support clemency for Matt. From business, Oklahoma Bankers Association. This organization, which had paid a $3,000 reward for Kimes' initial capture, filed a strong objection to his release. And, perhaps most loudly, from the public. Response from residents of Oklahoma and surrounding states was divided, with sentiment for and against his release being roughly even. The press, however, was less sympathetic, with one editorial sarcastically remarking on the idea of paroling Kimes, stating, "He only killed a couple of police officers, foolish fellows who imagined that it was part of their duty to attempt to apprehend bank bandits and robbers." In light of his past offenses and the strong opposition, Matthew Kimes' application for clemency was initially postponed in August 1944 due to an overcrowded docket. However, when the board reconvened in September, they ultimately decided that Kimes must continue serving his life term for murder, prohibiting him from filing another application for 6 months. This decision indicated that public and official protests had significantly influenced the board's outcome. Undeterred by the previous rejection, Matt Kimes persisted. By July 1945, he had made another strong plea for freedom. A public hearing was held on July 21st, where Kimes, described as handsome according to movie star standards, with a seductive, charming smile, personally argued his case. He claimed that national statistics showed the average time served for murder was 7 years, contrasting it with his 18 years at McAllister. He also sought to explain away criticisms by saying they brought his case into politics. This time, the Pardon and Parole Board was swayed. They ultimately granted Kimes a 60-day leave of absence, ostensibly to allow him time to gather more evidence for a parole. This decision sparked immediate concern, with board members openly discussing the potential for Kimes to glamorize his life of crime, or even make a movie of his exploits. There was even consideration of adding a prohibition against him profiting financially from his story. Upon hearing the board's decision, Kimes responded, "Thank you, sirs. This is the moment I've been waiting for." In a small, almost humorous detail illustrating his nervous state, he picked up the hat of one of the parole board members instead of his own when leaving the board office. He quickly realized his mistake and returned the hat to the hat rack. It was revealed later that there may have been more to the story of how Matt obtained the leave. He may have gained their favor by secretly providing information that broke up a significant dope smuggling ring operating within the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. This operation, which had allegedly been active for 6 years, was estimated by then Warden R.B. Connor to have smuggled approximately $10,000 worth of narcotics into the prison per month, totaling over $700,000. The climax of the investigation occurred on May 8, 1944, with the arrest of the ring's 2 main outside men, Raymond Tilley and Alfred Smith, in an automobile outside the prison walls, where drugs valued at $10,000 were discovered in the glove compartment. Kimes was described as instrumental in uncovering the men behind the dope conspiracy, and his cooperation was kept a closely guarded secret among state and federal officials due to fears of underworld vengeance that might lead to his death. Whatever the reason for the parole board's decision, before long Matt had obtained a state's driver's license, a symbolic step toward his hoped-for freedom. But Kimes' brief taste of liberty quickly spiraled into renewed criminal activity, proving his critics right. On September 5, 1945, while on this leave, Kimes was suspected of participating in a $17,000 bank robbery at Morton, Texas, along with 3 other armed men. His alleged accomplices included Oliver Melton and Fred Pear, who were later apprehended, and Olaf Alvin Chick Rogers, who remained at large. Just days before that robbery, Kimes reportedly mailed his monthly behavior report from McAllister, claiming he was living there and working for his brother-in-law, Jack Ashford, building truck trailers. However, federal charges were filed on November 1st, and the FBI reported Kimes had not been seen at McAllister since. His other actions during this leave further exacerbated his notoriety. Kimes was stopped by Oklahoma City police for running a traffic light. He was also arrested in McAllister for driving between 50 and 60 miles per hour in a 20-mile zone and appeared to be under the influence of liquor. He posted and forfeited a $10 bond for the McAllister charge. A theater manager in Wewoka identified Kimes as the perpetrator of a $1,200 holdup. Due to these incidents, Governor Kerr revoked Kimes' 6-month leave of absence on November 9th. A statewide manhunt was launched, with FBI, state, and local officials intensely searching for him across the Southwest. Rumors of his sightings spread rapidly from southern Kansas to the Texas Gulf Coast. Governor Kerr, while acknowledging Kimes' failure, stated that no change would be made to the state's pardon and parole policy as a result, maintaining his belief in reformation, restoration, and rehabilitation. He even suggested that whiskey was the cause of Kimes' relapse. Officials indicated that if Kimes were recaptured alive and managed to avoid transfer to Alcatraz for the Texas bank robbery, he would be placed in solitary confinement at the Oklahoma Reformatory at Granite. This was intended to prevent other penitentiary inmates from killing him for snitching on the prison dope ring that he had helped to break up in 1944, a detail that was only publicly revealed after he absconded. After an entire life spent dodging law officers and participating in wild getaways, Matthew Kimes' elusive run came to an unexpected and abrupt end, not in a dramatic shootout, but in a mundane traffic accident. On a Saturday night, December 1st, 1945, Kimes ended his manhunt when he accidentally stepped into the path of a poultry truck driven by Joe Chambly, a 23-year-old ex-soldier, while crossing a street with an associate. Chambly later stated the accident was unavoidable, and a technical charge of reckless driving against him was dismissed. Not only was the charge dismissed, but one newspaper callously said that police are inclined to compliment him on his good marksmanship and his luck in picking out his victim. Upon impact, Kimes was rendered unconscious and appeared to be in a dying condition. Patrolman Burt Campbell, an eyewitness driving approximately 100 yards behind Chambly's truck, observed Chambly and another man pulling Kimes from under the vehicle. Campbell noted that Kimes' face was covered with blood and his scalp was peeled back. Several people in the gathered crowd reportedly thought they recognized him as a friend. At the scene, a .38 caliber automatic pistol fell from Kimes' pocket, which he denied was his upon regaining consciousness. Kimes was accompanied by another man, surmised to be Olaf Allen Rogers, also accused in the Morton bank robbery, who remained at the scene until Kimes was removed to the hospital and then disappeared. Kimes was transported to the Baptist State Hospital in Little Rock. At the hospital, it was discovered he had around $1,600 in his clothing. He was suffering from a compound fracture of the left leg, scalp lacerations, severe bruises over most of his body, and internal injuries, including hemorrhages of the back and an intestinal obstruction. Initially, Kimes gave the false name Leo A. Woods of Miami, Oklahoma, and requested that his family not be notified of the accident, which, coupled with the large sum of money found, raised suspicions among hospital authorities. His true identity was definitively established when confronted with a report from Miami police that the real Leo Wood's car and registration papers had been stolen a month prior, and it was clinched by fingerprint tests conducted by FBI agents. The FBI agents then took custody of him, intending to transfer him to Texas to face the bank robbery charges as soon as his condition permitted. Kimes, who was conscious much of the time, chose not to speak about his activities since his release, acting on physicians' advice. Despite his fractured leg healing well, his internal injuries worsened. Doctors informed him on Thursday, December 13th, that a major operation was necessary to remove an intestinal obstruction. He was conscious and, before the operation, requested an FBI agent to notify his sister, Mrs. Nellie Ashford, who arrived with her husband late that night. Kimes reportedly asked for only a local anesthetic, stating he wanted to remain conscious during the procedure. In spite of the surgeon's best efforts, on Friday morning, December 14, 1945, at 7:45 a.m., Matthew Kimes passed away. Matthew Kimes' funeral services were held the following Monday at the Assembly of God Church in McAlester, Oklahoma. Approximately 500 people attended, including prison guards, McAlester police, and Oklahoma Highway Patrol members, all watching intently during the service. The service was officiated by Reverend Alton Parker of Hartshorn, a longtime friend of the Kimes boys, and Reverend J.J. Simpson of El Reno. Kimes' sisters, Mrs. Nellie Ashford and Mrs. Jackie Kimes Smith, were present, as was his brother, George Kimes, heavily guarded by 2 prison officers. Efforts by the family to secure a leave for George to attend burial in Van Buren were unsuccessful. Notably, Matt Kimes' extensive criminal career, which began by the time he was 17 and ended with his death at 39, was never mentioned during the rites. Instead, the pastors lauded him as a true friend and a better Christian than many who have their names on the rolls of this church. They spoke of his tearful seeking of forgiveness at a previous church service and offered prayers for his peace, with Reverend Simpson stating, "Matt is free today, at peace, at home, and surrounded by love." Kimes' body was then transported to Van Buren, Arkansas, where a second funeral was held on Tuesday, followed by burial in the family plot. He was laid to rest beside his parents, Cornelius and Lily, and his sister Lovey. Other relatives attended, including E.L. Uncle Matt Poe and his nephew and niece, Billy Joe and Wanda Patton. In the aftermath of Matt Kimes' death, many questions lingered, particularly regarding his alleged involvement in the Morton, Texas bank robbery. Mabel Bassett, Oklahoma's Commissioner of Charities and Corrections, publicly declared her belief that Matt Kimes was innocent of the Texas bank robbery, stating there was no evidence whatsoever that he was there at the time. She criticized the public release of information about Kimes aiding prison officials in breaking a narcotics ring, believing it made him a target and deterred him from surrendering. George Kimes, still in prison, also firmly believed his brother was innocent of the Morton robbery, and recounted Matt telling him he was being followed by private detectives and planning to go straight just before his final leave. George also felt that Matt's inability to secure a steady job outside McAlester contributed to his downfall. Despite the $1,600 found in Matt's possession at the hospital, George confirmed that he and his sisters inherited nothing from their brother. His car was sold, and his savings were consumed by funeral expenses. George expressed deep regret over Matt's failure to make good on his freedom, lamenting that it had hurt the other fellows' chances to get out. He noted that the Pardon and Parole Board had significantly tightened up since Matt's controversial leave. George had hoped Matt would help him secure parole once his 6-month leave concluded. Although Kimes' role in stopping the penitentiary drug ring was almost certainly a significant factor in persuading the Pardon and Parole Board to recommend his leave, the dope ring was never mentioned at the public hearings on his clemency case or in any public discussions. This secret was only revealed in November 1945, after Kimes became a fugitive again, following his alleged involvement in the Texas bank robbery, underscoring the extraordinary nature of the deal that led to his temporary freedom. Upon his capture and subsequent death, it was further noted that one reason Kimes may not have surrendered when his leave was revoked was in fear of what his fellow prisoners would do to him if they knew he had been an informer. Matthew Kimes was a man of contradictions, a charismatic figure with a seductive, charming smile who led a life of audacious crime, leaving a trail of robbed banks and murdered peace officers. His criminal career, spanning the roaring 1920s and beyond, brought him national notoriety as the Phantom Bandit and Kid Outlaw. Even after serving 18 years, his influence within prison walls was undeniable, earning him the moniker the Warden of the Grim Institution. His attempts at clemency highlighted the profound divide between his perceived reformation and the deep-seated pain of his victims' families. Ultimately, Matthew Kimes' life of defiance ended not in a blaze of glory, but in a mundane traffic accident, a sudden, anticlimactic close to a career that had, for years, captured the nation's attention. His death left behind a legacy of shattered lives, a grieving family, and a chilling reminder of the profound cost of a life lived beyond the law. Next time on Dust Toll. The death of Matthew Kimes left a void in the Kimes family saga, but the story was far from over. His brother, George, still serving a seemingly endless sentence, would continue his own desperate quest for freedom, facing parole boards, attempting more daring escapes, and even finding an unexpected path to artistic expression behind bars. Meanwhile, Nellie and Jackie, forever marked by the family name, would navigate their own brushes with the law, confronting the inescapable burden of their notorious lineage. The final chapter of the Kimes brothers' epic will reveal surprising turns, moments of hope, and the ultimate reckoning of lives shaped by crime, loyalty, and the relentless pursuit of a peace that always seemed just out of reach. Join us next time on Dust Toll as we conclude the main series with George Kimes' incredible journey and the enduring echoes of a family whose name became a legend.
I will sing a little song, but it ain't very long, about a lazy farmer wouldn't hold his corn, and why it was I never could tell, for that young man was always well. That young man was always well. He planted his corn on June the last. In July it was up to his eye. In September there came a big frost, and all that young man's corn was lost. All that young man's corn was lost. He started to the field and he got that last. The grass and the weeds was up to his chin. The grass and the weeds had grown so high, it called that poor man for to sigh. Called that poor man for to sigh.
This has been Dust Toll, the story of the Kimes family. It is a true story meticulously drawn from the newspaper accounts of the era, offering a raw, unvarnished look at the lives of the Kimes family members. This series was written, narrated, and produced by Darren Racy. For more information, visit our website at dusttoll.com.